With it, Saturday night, and all the Wildcat fans have got to really come out and support the Cats, right?
We really do. Of course, the Clark Central game is always a tremendous game. It's been just a tough ball game every year we played it. Coach Henderson and those folks up there, the Athens people, they really come out for Valdosta. They'll bring a good crowd down. They're going to be a noisy bunch, and so we need to be heard in Cleveland Field Saturday night.
Coach, you can always depend on the Valdosta Touchdown Club to come through with something just at the right time.
Finest club, finest organization of its kind in America, and I get to travel around a lot, and people ask us what we do and these type of things, but it's these type of things that we do. Like, for instance, there's a sign on our practice field that just says, we're for you, we back you Cats, we want you to win, things like that, and they see it when they go on, and they're reminded of this type of thing, and it's dark when we come off the practice field so that it lights up. So it's, and of course it's getting close to Christmas time, so we enjoy the lights and this type of thing. But another thing that you're doing, David, you or Bill might be able to share with us, we were treated very well up there last year with the hospitality situation with their booster club. And we're going to reciprocate, I understand, this year, are we not?
That's correct.
As they arrive.
That's correct. We've sent them a list of motels and phone numbers they can contact for rooms if people want to come stay overnight. And we'll also have on the northwest stands for them, out at Northwest Gate where you enter, complimentary coffee and stuff. And they were very kind to us last year. They really were.
Well, the weather probably predicts to be coffee type weather that people would want to be involved with, but that's hospitality, and it makes you feel, we felt good about the gesture that they did for us last year, and of course it was about, what, 0 to 15 somewhere up there last year, and a very cold night, and that was a very fine gesture. But I think what we do when these teams play, they show the hospitality of the two communities, and the Touchdown Club carries this banner, and I think it is a tribute to what our club does, and the people who are a part of the club can be proud of Touchdown Corner and to see what we can do, what we can communicate with them, and to see it's not just your hand out for money. It's to support the players, to make the folks feel welcome when they come to our community, and to those banners, for instance, Bill, that are going to be over, I believe you said 4.
Yes, sir.
Thousands of people will see those banners. It's kind of like an election campaign. People put up signs, but I'm sure it's something just to let folks know that the Wildcats are playing.
That's right. And
sponsored by the Touchdown Club. And once again, the Touchdown Club is just magnificent in what it does to support us. And it's not just a fundraising organization. It's to support our football team, which our team is proud to represent our wonderful town. Calvin, we could go on and on and on about our Touchdown Club and how much they mean to us, but this old coach is very proud of the Valdosta Touchdown Club, the finest in America.
Bill, David, we appreciate you guys joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Valdosta versus Clark Central Saturday night. You've got to be there. Well, let's get an answer to the last trivia question right now.
The answer to our last question is this. The last time the Wildcats won undisputed consecutive state championships was in 1965 and 1966.
Hey, we're the VHS cheerleaders, and we're looking forward to seeing you Saturday night in the stands to cheer the Cats on to another victory.
Dave McCracken. Dave, we're glad to have you on the program again, and before we get into Saturday night's game, I want us to talk about maybe a special event or two that the Touchdown Club has planned for the Wildcats.
Well, I guess the biggest one that you're referring to, Calvin, is probably our postseason banquet. Immediately after our banquet last March, a couple of days after, believe it or not, we started work on the March '91 banquet. Coach Hyder, Dr. Dean Mink, and I approached Coach Steve Spurrier at the University of Florida. And within 2 or 3 weeks, we got a confirmation back, and that letter right now is in my safety deposit box. And on Monday, March the 4th, Coach Steve Spurrier will be at Valdosta High School for our 1990 banquet. And we're real pleased to have him. He's done an outstanding job, as you know, at the University of Florida. He came in 1 year, completely turned around their program. And as most of the people around here can tell you, unless you're a fan of Tennessee or Florida State, he took care of your team. I know he did Auburn because I went down there and watched him.
So that's March
4th.
March
it's the
the
first
4th.
Monday in March, 1991, and we'll be publicizing this on a grander scale as time draws near, and all members of the Touchdown Club are invited, and guests too, and we'll be getting out an announcement for those who wish to come who are not Touchdown Club members in terms of what the fee will be.
Boy, it sounds like we're going to have a great banquet again. You guys just do it year after year.
Well, we're real pleased because Coach Spurrier will be the second consecutive Heisman Trophy winner that we'll have, and we're really proud of that. As you know, we had Pat Sullivan from Auburn last year, and now we'll follow up with Coach Steve Spurrier.
Dave, you've done a tremendous job the last 2 years for the Touchdown Club, but I know this is your biggest game yet as president.
This is the biggest one, Calvin, and it's the one that frankly scares me the most because it's the one that we've scrapped and worked so hard for, and although the Clark Central win was a tremendous one, I'm afraid a lot of our people have the belief that we've already won the state championship and that all we have to do is show up Saturday night to accept the trophy and go home. And if we go in with that kind of attitude, we're going to get waxed. We're going to get beaten soundly. This team that we're going to be playing is a lot like Carver of '87 and Griffin of '78. I mean, they're for real. I have some friends in North Georgia that have called me and indicated that they're loaded. It's a case of our itty-bitty little boys going up against big behemoths from the north that are corn-fed and happen to run like deer. And we're going to have our hands full, and we need the kind of effort that we had Saturday night from our fans. And I want to let everyone know how much I appreciate the spirit and enthusiasm that we demonstrated at that game. It looked like the Valdosta crowds of old, the ones that Valdosta is known for, and we need that kind of effort again. We really do.
Okay, how about Section D and C? Are they coming along?
Well, it was interesting. Out on the field after the game, I had several people come up to me, particularly from the north stands, and they were giving their various ratings. I know I had one fellow tell me that C beat B, and then I had one fellow tell me that B beat both C and D. And of course, we know that that's impossible for anybody to beat Section D with the veterans that we have. But this afternoon, I received a telephone call from the National Council on Noise and Crowd Control with their report. D did, in fact, hold their own. They narrowly beat out C and B. A got honorable mention. But I want to really recognize the fans in sections L and M across the way. I thought they did a fantastic job. And it's my promise to them that we will get over this week and we will give you an ample supply of these posters. We ran out near the end of the little pregame portion, but I promise we'll get over there. They
go,
did a,
Cats, go.
And defense.
Defense. Okay.
They did a great job. They completely snuffed out Section K, which belonged to Clark Central, and you couldn't even hear them. And I'm really delighted with L and M. They did a great job.
Coach, it looks like the Touchdown Club and the fans are ready, and I know the Wildcats will be too.
Well, our Touchdown Club is, we've said it all year long, and I've said it for all the time that we've been in Valdosta, that it's the greatest organization of its kind because it's made up of unselfish people who love our Wildcats and who love the young men, the community, and all aspects of what this segment of our community means. One thing about the banquet, Dave, that's one of the benefits of being a member of our Touchdown Club, of joining. For the price of a membership, that is a ticket to the banquet. Am I right on that? Which
You're
is
absolutely correct,
a very big benefit to come because it's a wonderful meal, a wonderful night of entertainment, a great speech to meet people like Steve Spurrier, a national figure and a wonderful man. Steve's from East Tennessee, by the way, which is where I'm from, and his father was a minister up there in the church at Johnson City, Tennessee, which is 6 miles from my hometown of Elizabethton. And I didn't know Steve, but I knew of his family and have heard some wonderful things about him. We're looking forward to having him. And they are recruiting in North Georgia, or in South Georgia since he's been there, and they're coming in here quite often. I know Dr. Dean Mink is real happy about that.
He's very pleased. He really is. He did a great job in working with us, and we're really delighted.
Well, another thing, the spirit that you've built up, this type thing is tremendous. We tell our youngsters, our football team, that if they earn the applause of the fans, they'll give it to us. And that's what you're doing. We feel like our team has earned this, and that you're giving it to us in gracious proportion. Now, grace is defined as maybe something that we get that isn't always earned, but we feel like this is something that's shared, and we really enjoy this and all the other things that our Touchdown Club does. The signs that we have around town. Just say, "Go Cats, we love you." And that means that we love them regardless of whether they win or whether they lose, because they're giving it everything they've got. And that's what we ask, and I think that's why people enjoy watching our Wildcats, is that they do the best they can, because we do have the finest team that's been in here since Griffin or Carver, and that type of athletes, and we've got our hands full once again, Dave, and I appreciate your leadership in that area.
Well, you touched on something I feel very strongly about, and that is the fact that this group of players has functioned and personified what a team is all about, and they deserve our respect. And respect is something that we have not gotten from what I call the Yankee press outside Valdosta, north and south. They ignored us in the final regular season poll. You hear all sort of negative remarks about how this team doesn't measure up. And folks, they're wearing black and gold jerseys, and they're ours, and they've done an outstanding job, and they've brought us to the prom. There are 87 other teams looking in at these final two, wishing they could be there, and we're one of the final two. And we ought to go in there with a take-no-prisoners attitude. This is the big one. This is what we've worked since back in the winter workouts and weightlifting and the spring practices and the hot summer afternoons and the scrapping all through the season. We're here, and we're getting to host it. And we need to be out there backing the Cats.
Dave and Calvin, Cleveland Field is a storied, wonderful, historical place. I'll drive by there at this time, and I drive by several times during the week, and it always is sort of hallowed ground. We sort of ease by there because it's a special place. But when you go in there and you're a part of it, you think of all the literally millions of people who have been there over the last, since 1920, 22 when it was finished, and been a part of it. It really is the foundation of Valdosta, and we're very proud of that, and this is our chance to let the rest of the world see once again what it means. And when Southwest DeKalb comes in here, yes, they have magnificent athletes. They would like nothing better than to come to Cleveland Field and to go away with a victory. And of course, if we're at our best, that's our best chance to do the things that we want to do. But it's going to take the type of things that you're talking about to spur our youngsters on, and I think that's what we need, and I really appreciate this effort, Dave, and the Touchdown Club, and Calvin, the things that you do.
David, we want to thank you for the Touchdown Club, you and David Walden, some of the fine gentlemen this year that have given us some leadership and helped us coordinate this program this year, and we thank you very much.
Well, we've enjoyed it, and Coach Hyder and Calvin, y'all have done a great job, and are a credit to the high school and community. We've enjoyed being a part of it.
You've heard it from the Touchdown Club president now, Dave McCracken. Let's be at Cleveland Field Saturday night as the 77-year-old Wildcat tradition continues on. Just be a part of it. Let's hear next week how this different...
Ready for their toughest test yet.
This type of situation. A very fine football team, a quality football team. And when they defeated Griffin, after the way Griffin beat Tift County, you've got to stand up at attention for these people because they're a fine football team.
And today, Mayor Jimmy Rainwater was at the Wildcats practice to officially proclaim tomorrow Valdosta Wildcat Day. The Cats will host Southwest DeKalb, winners of one state championship over the years at 8 o'clock.
The Wildcats are the winningest football team in the state over the past 10 years, capturing 4 state crowns in the 80s. The Valdosta coach Nick Hyder is not overlooking Southwest DeKalb. He said the Panthers will bring one of the finest teams to Death Valley since the Griffin championship team back in 1978.
Griffin brought in Willie Galt, who's now in the NFL. They brought in Freddie Gilbert, who's now in the NFL. They brought in a youngster named Jackson, who played in linebacker in the NFL. And they brought a youngster named Ricky Williamson, who played in the NFL, all on one football team. And we had a tremendous ball game. We knew about it, but we had difficulty back then. We know that this team is very talented. Speed, quickness, talent, poise, and confidence of this team really gives us a tremendous challenge. It's the finest team we've seen in many years as far as we're concerned.
As always, a big crowd is expected tomorrow night at Cleveland Field as the Valdosta Wildcats go after their second state crown in a row, hosting Southwest DeKalb in the title game. Well, the Valdosta players got a big surprise yesterday at practice. A skydiver came down out of the skies over Valdosta and surprised the football team and coaches. It was all part of getting the team pumped up for tomorrow night's championship game with Southwest DeKalb. All of this was sponsored by the Valdosta Touchdown Club, one of the most active clubs in the nation, and one 14 yards, fights off a defender, touchdown for Valdosta. The Cats had themselves a 14-0 lead. Valdosta fans were absolutely loving it. Then right before halftime, the Cats drive down the field again. This time they get a 28-yard field goal. Valdosta took a 17-0 halftime lead in the ball game. We move on now to the fourth quarter of the contest. Valdosta recovers a fumble on the 6-yard line. Alton Hinton around the corner. He'll dive just inside of the stripe. Touchdown, Valdosta. Hinton went down on the play. He hurt his knee, did not return to the football game. Then late in the game, Johnson back to pass. It's picked off by Leroy Williams, and he will return it 36 yards for the final score of the game. Valdosta would go on to a 31-0 victory tonight over Southwest DeKalb. The clock counting down the seconds at Cleveland Field as Valdosta has won their 21st state title, their 6th state title for head coach Nick Hyder. A happy bunch of Valdosta fans and players tonight at Cleveland Field as Valdosta wins the state Quad A championship. Final score from Cleveland Field. Valdosta 30.
DeKalb, especially on defense. The Panthers fumbled away their best scoring chance right here, and the Wildcats methodically kept piling up the score. The offense, including Joe Wright on this 14-yard run, racked up a 17-0 halftime lead. The defense would add a score late when Leroy Williams stepped in for the interception. The Wildcats rolled to a 31-0 victory and their 21st state championship. The defense gave up just 72 yards.
The linebackers, Larry Jester, the defensive front, and Keith Middleton, the secondary, got the shutout with the players, and they worked hard all week, studied. I'll say this, I think they worked not only hard, they worked intelligent.
The Cats finish unbeaten as well at 13-0-1. The Florida State Seminoles.
It didn't quite get in there, but it was about a 65, 70-yard run.
Carlos Parker.
And it was Carlos Parker, and there was another long run a little bit later by Alton Hinton in this ball game. And there you see our fans. The Clark Central people were really kind. They had an open house type thing for our fans, coffee and sandwiches, donuts and things. I think we're planning the same thing for them. Our touchdown club is going to do that, and it's very nice to do this. Buck, here's another one of those big plays, and you see the talent of Carlos Parker there. Very fine athlete. Their quarterback's name was Middlebrooks, but I think that quarterback is Chad Whittemore. That's the young man that we'll face. Now, that's Jason Jelks there. There they are in the end zone.
This is after the game.
This is after the game, and those are freshmen now. Believe it or not, they've only been with us 3 or 4 weeks at this point, and we took them to this ball game. But once again, it was a very fine, well-played football game, and football the way it should be played. And we certainly enjoyed the outcome, but both teams played extremely well.
Welcome back once again to this special edition of Wildcat Tradition. This is Calvin McWhort along with head coach Nick Hyder and our other co-host Buck Ballou. Coach Hyder, this Clark Central team, I understand, can play both good offense and defense.
The offensive things that impress you, Chad Whittemore, the quarterback, who's the son of a very fine athlete, a great athlete there at the University of Georgia many years ago, and was one of the coaches on the staff there until recently, is a fine passer. He's also a very fine baseball athlete. He's the catcher on their baseball team. And Buck, as you know, catchers aren't intimidated with anything, and he does a good job. He has a good arm, good and control. They've got a very fine receiver, similar to the McCraney boy that plays for Moultrie or Colquitt County, and he's a threat. And so now when you put Carlos Freeman in that backfield, a 225-pound running back, very similar to James Roberts, the youngster that we had, the great back we have now playing for of Tennessee at Chattanooga, you've got a very balanced offense, 260-pound tackles, 240 or 50-pound guards, a good job. Defensively, their defensive ends, tackles, the nose guard, the two linebackers are outstanding. Secondary, they have real good athletes. Another interesting thing about this team, it's typical of all Billy Henderson coach teams, they have an outstanding kicking game. Last year they had the Johnson boy, Buck, you remember him? I think, I understand he'll be Georgia's punter next year. And then, of course, we go back to Casey and many others through the year. Balanced football team, tough. The Cats, once again, have their hands full. Probably the finest all-around team we've faced this year.
Buck, after listening to that, boy, it looks like we really got our hands full.
Well, I tell you, usually it's for the state championship, but I guess a lot of people around the state, outside these two programs, might be saying that this is for the state championship, knowing some of the media, per se. But obviously a big matchup. Their tradition has it they've been king of the North for so long, and we've been sort of king of the South for all these years. And obviously they've always been great matchups. I don't see why this year would be any different.
You know, we've had some close ball games, and I understand that the Statesboro coach told his players that this was the year to get Valdosta, and I'm sure Clark Central is feeling that way too, so it's going to be quite a battle in there.
Well, I think every year is the year to get Valdosta, Calvin. That's the mentality that exists around the state, and it's strictly because of the success we've enjoyed here. And Clark Central has enjoyed the same type of success up in Athens. And the people around the state probably are a little bit jealous of these two programs because they seem to be here every year.
Coach, your quarterback, he had to go out twice the other night when he's beaten and bruised up. He's been hit hard all year long. Is Alton Hitson having a good week?
Alton Hitson is a wonderful young man. Always has a good week. He reminds me of those old bombers that they used to fly in World War II. We see movies of them now, and you shoot an engine out, you shoot the tail off, but they still fly. And he's right out there at practice every day, and he leads the team as a quarterback and as a captain, which Buck Ballou also did for us when Buck played for us. And it's sort of, Buck, y'all sort of set a precedent. I know you looked up to the ones before you, and now these youngsters remember you and look up to you, and that's a great thing that we call Wildcat tradition, and we're extremely proud of that. We're talking about the comparison of these two football teams. Look at our scores this year. Of course, we had a tie ball game with Camden County. You come with the 3-0 at Bainbridge, 30-29 with Coffee County.
17-16.
17-16 with Jess Lanier. Other close games, one touchdown, very close touchdown with the Lowndes, a very fine game in that situation from both teams. Now, Clark Central's done the same thing. Newton County, South Gwinnett, like 13-8. Shiloh, a team that I'm not familiar with, but it was 23-20. They won this ball game. And, of course, they lost to Griffin, I believe, LaGrange. Griffin 9-0. LaGrange beat them 28-18 were the two games that they lost. But the one game that throws us off is Brookwood. Now, Brookwood is a team that finished 9-1 in the regular season, but Clark Central beat them 49-0. And I don't know how to figure that other than when we say they have good athletes, a fine passing game. Carlos Freeman, the big back, is also a fine receiver. They throw a screen pass to him, which is frightening. And when he moves on down the field behind their blocking. So they're capable of the big score. They're capable of hanging on and playing in the tight game. And we've done the same thing, except we haven't had that 49-0 tie ball game.
Buck, I know that being a quarterback, that you like the way that Hitson's been hitting Armilio and the Carlos boys on those passes.
Oh, no question about it. Alton, it's been fun to watch him progress because last year he was sort of stepped in without a whole lot of experience at the position. And to see him grow and progress has been fantastic. And to see him enjoy the success that he has because, you know, a lot of people doubted his abilities to begin with. But I tell you what, as you look at him now, he's an all-around quarterback. I think a quarterback that's capable of going on after his high school days and playing some more college football somewhere. He's a big play quarterback, as we saw last year in the state championship game. And, you know, you need big plays in big ball games, and he's been able to deliver.
Well, Coach, you know, we've talked about the nine times that Valdosta and Clark Central plays. That's history. The tradition continues on Saturday night. And so we just got to keep going on for the future. I know we got our hands full.
Well, the thing that is different, I guess if you're training to be a doctor, you do it on cadavers or dead bodies, but when you actually get to be a doctor and you have to operate on live people, it's different. And when you have to go out and play the game, lay it on the line, call the play, you send that play out there, and the youngsters go out there and they have to perform. Buck, you remember, as a player, it's different. But that's why people get excited and they want to watch, and it's why youngsters want to perform well. And I'm so proud that to be in Valdosta, to be where we have worked and where we don't feel like we're never overconfident because we have so much respect for our opponents and our young men. But I was so proud to hear you talk about Alton. Your background in baseball and football was so good. Alton's our center fielder. Alton hits it. You mentioned Carlos Moore. He's one of our very fine baseball players, and I think baseball and football have been very compatible in our community.
Well, not only here, Coach, we have a fine tradition of having great athletes here, but as you mentioned, Chad Whittemore, the quarterback for Clark Central, also with baseball backgrounds. And as you mentioned, his roots, his father was a tremendous athlete and really a first-class individual when I was at Georgia. And he's that type of fellow. I've known Chad since he was a young man, and I know he'll be ready to play Saturday night, and it's going to be exciting to see him perform. It's going to be quite a challenge. Two very good teams, and I tell you, it's the only game in town Saturday night, and I'm sure there won't be too many empty seats out at Cleveland Field.
Buck, Chad finished last year's game by hitting a touchdown pass on the last play of the game against us, if you remember, to make that score for their 13th point. Because the game was over, as the clock ran out, they didn't, of course, kick the extra point, but that was Chad Whittemore that threw that touchdown pass.
Coach, people are saying that this team has as much heart, or perhaps more, than any team we've had in a long time. You had Jonathan Davis out for a year to come back and played. You had Sean Eilers out for a year, come back and played after severe injuries. Jay Bowling broke fingers, Alton Hitson hurt. You just keep on going. These young men are in there playing 48 minutes.
Andre Scruggs with anterior cruciate knee surgery, along with, you mentioned Sean Eilers. And I would think that everybody that's playing has had some kind of injury that you'd have to come back. But we teach this. Buck, you remember this, a well-conditioned athlete recovers quickly. And conditioning is spiritual, moral, mental, and physical. All four of those things. And we teach those things that make the total person. And I think when our youngsters learn that, they do recover quickly and learn to be unselfish, and I think that's Valdosta. It was here all during these years. Buck's granddaddy played for the Wildcats. And you come with all the tradition, his brothers played here along with Buck. So this is tradition, and there's hundreds and thousands of stories that make what it is. So I hope we're ready to go, but I've never seen a Valdosta team that didn't play with a lot of heart, and I hope we're ready to continue that.
Buck, any final comments before we leave?
Well, I'm looking for a very close game. I know both teams are going to be prepared, and I'm just glad we don't have to make that trip to Athens. I've made that so many times during the last 10 to 15 years that I don't care to make that one, particularly this time of year, because it's always good to be playing on your home turf in front of your home fans and familiar surroundings. So many times when you play on the road, some things go against you, and it's hard to recover, like in '77 when we were up there. So I'm glad it's here, and I'm going to have a short drive. I'm going to have a short walk to get to the game, and I'm just looking forward to seeing it and looking forward to seeing everybody there.
Coach, I want you to tell those players that the fans, the town, everybody's behind them, supporting them, and we're going to do our part. And I just want you to let the guys know that we're behind them. And
there's more sections than Section D, is that right? We have many, many sections in our stadium.
That's correct. I was talking on the long-distance phone. A lot of people have been saying, where's Noisy Ross? I hadn't seen him the last couple of weeks. Well, he's been having to work over in Montgomery, Alabama, but he assured me that he's going to be there Saturday night with his megaphone, and he's going to be leading us in cheers, along with the cheerleaders, the marching cat bands, all the fans and everything. And Clark Central wanted this game changed to Saturday night so they could bring thousands and thousands of fans. I'm telling you, friends, we have got to be out there in big numbers to compete Saturday night. This is a team effort, starting with the Wildcats, but that includes all of us. We have got to be there, and we have really got to do our part more than we have any time this year. We've got to get there early and start cheering and hollering for those cats, and we've got to do it together. somehow, some way, we need to try to pull these Cats on to another victory this Saturday night. Well, this has been a special edition tonight, and don't forget, we're going to see you again Thursday night with the regular Wildcat tradition when the cheerleaders will be back with us. Allison Henson will be with us then, and we'll have Patsy Smith, Tom Bush Smith, and other guests. We got another great show lined up for you. If you haven't gotten your tickets, in talking with Jack Puckett, be sure to go by and get your tickets. And for those that weren't able to get reserved seats due to not having season tickets, well, you can go by now the superintendent's office and get some of those. You can get some tickets so you don't have to go too early and get reserved seats, but be sure to go by and get them because we need every one of you out there in full blossom this Saturday night at Cleveland Field as the Wildcats take on the Clark Central Gladiators. Thank you and good evening.